Hi, I'm Mejia Walsh, and I want to thank Toy Burton and DeeDee's Cry for the incredible work they do in the Boston community all year long. And I want to thank all of them for organizing this event today. Mental health is just as important as physical health, and seeking and accepting help is a sign of strength. That's especially true right now. The pandemic has added a whole new set of challenges to everyday life. For people who were struggling before, it can even be harder to manage this added weight. I'm here to tell you it's okay to feel fear and anxiety. We'll feel that for some time. This is an important time to take care of yourself. We're all handling this the best we can. And the only thing we can do is take one day at a time. If you need someone to talk to, you have options. You can call your healthcare provider to get set up with a telehealth counselor. Or you can call 311 at the city, our hotline, to get connected to anonymous counseling over the phone. I know that DeeDee's Cry is going to share some important resources with you today. I want to thank the panelists for coming together and sharing their stories. In times like these, it's important to support one another and find ways to connect. I wish you all the very best, and I thank you for creating a positive change in our community.
Yes, thank you, Boston Mayor Marty Walsh. Hello, everyone out there in TV land, or should we say WWW land. This is Robin here with you with DeeDee's Cry as we present Black Mental Health Matters. Tonight's topic of discussion is going to be about hair. I have none. Well, I do have a little bit. It depends on who's looking at it and what they decide to say about it, and then how you feel about it. And since we're talking about mental health, it's all about feelings. So that's why we're here tonight. But before we start talking and chatting and discussing, let's all take a deep breath, a cleansing breath for tonight. Breathe in and breathe out as we begin tonight's show. I'd like to introduce all of those who sponsored DeeDee's Cry. We have the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute. Thank you so much for being the fiscal sponsor and supporting DeeDee's Cry as always. Also, Roxbury Unity Parade. Callaway Graphics for creating this wonderful flyer for tonight's evening and all the flyers as well. Also, Java with Jimmy Hills for hosting the discussion. And we're gonna start now with introducing who we have as our panelists. Now, on the flyer, we have 4 folks, and we'll read them off, but we actually have 5 panelists tonight. First and foremost, we want to start with Boston City Councilor at Large, Julia Mejia. Hello, Julia. Also, we have Miss Liz James, a mother, preschool teacher, and playwright. We have Mark Harris, a Dynamo radio personality on Urban Heat 98.1 FM, and of course, fam from RBB way back when.
Indeed.
Yes. Also on tonight's panelists, we have my DST sorority sister, Delta Sigma Theta, representing Kelli Tatum, and she also does physical and mental health, and she's a committee member for that.
Hey.
Brianna Milor. She's coming in tonight as our humble citizen of Boston. I love it. And then to start the conversation and to keep us through for this hour and maybe a few minutes beyond that, we have Dr. Brandy Brooks, Director of Operations for DeeDee's Cry and the Roxbury Unity Parade. Also co-moderator tonight is our media professional, James W. Hills. Yes. And then last but not least, the founder and executive director of DeeDee's Cry and the Roxbury Unity Parade, Toy Burton. And we'll turn the mic on over. To Toy?
Hi. Well, it wasn't going to me first, but since it's on me,
Okay.
I will definitely go. So,
well, toss it. Toss the mic.
Toss the mic. Okay, I'm tossing it to Brandy. Go ahead, Brandy.
That's right.
Okay.
All right. Good evening, everyone. As Robin said, my name is Dr. Brandy Brooks. I've worked in the mental health, public health space for more than 16 years, doing contract managing, training, support groups, everything in between. And though it seems like ages, I received my doctorate in education from the University of Massachusetts Lowell last year. So now what I'm going to try to do is incredibly difficult, but I'm going to try to frame tonight's conversation in about 5 minutes or less, because I want to give the panelists enough time to share their stories. And I know you want to hear their stories. So when we talk about the story of Black hair, it's a story that involves slavery, tears, self-hatred, rebellion, and self-love. Apart from beauty, hair was and is a part of someone's identity. Historically, people could tell which tribe you came from, your social status, your religion, your class, and even your fertility based on your hair. Annually, we spend billions of dollars on oils, chemicals, styling, restoration, coloring, and otherwise maintaining our hair. So when we have a conversation around mental health and hair, it is very nuanced. And there are many avenues that I could go down in these 5 minutes, but I'm going to boil it down to 3 categories that will help us understand the connections between mental health and hair. So the categories are internal, external, and mental health. So the first category, internal, it has to do with your overall sense of self-worth and personal value. In short, it is about how much you like and appreciate yourself and your hair, your clothes, your personality, all those things that make you uniquely you. And your perception of who you are or aren't is not just in mirrors and photos, but it's in your mind. It's not just about what's reflected back at you, but it's your internalization of that reflection. Your image encompasses the thoughts and feelings about every part of you. Or as Jill Scott said in her song, from your hair follicles to your toenails. It's about how it feels to move and exist in your body and every part of that. And it's about your perceptions and beliefs about your appearance. And that can be tied to your self-esteem and ability to practice self-love. If you don't like what you see reflected back at you with respect to your hair, that matters, and that can impact your mental health. Second, we may internalize their perception of our hair's texture, length, styling, color, and other features. Hair discrimination is real. Similar to the doll study that was presented in Brown v. Board of Education, where kids ages 3 to 7, they were asked to identify both the race of the dolls and which color doll they prefer. And many preferred the white doll and assigned positive characteristics to it. People do the same thing with hair. Hair is one component of how others perceive our intelligence, our hygiene, our employability, our attractiveness, our likability, and so on and so on and so on. And there are many studies that document this. And so how you are perceived by others as you inhabit this world in your braids, your afro, your weaves, your wigs, your hair pieces, your beautiful baldness, your twists, your locks, your bantu knots, your doobies, your fades, your waves, everything, right? But what do they see when they look at you? And how does what they see determine their interactions with you? So without you saying one word, when someone looks at you and your hair in all its gloriousness, do they see a doctor? Do they see a community activist? Do they see a city councilor? Do they see a firefighter? Do they see an artist? Do they see just the humble Roxbury resident and on-air personality? What do they see? And again, how we are perceived and treated and how we internalize that treatment is intricately tied to our perception of worth and value. And third and lastly, hair is intricately tied to our mental health. When speaking about the absence or abundance of hair and everything in between, it boils down, as many know, to many things. It could be genetics, in terms of, your family being one where men go bald early or women thin. It could be hormonal changes where you've taken you've undergone chemotherapy, which impacts your hair and everything else. Your age, I want to cover up those grays, and also mental health. So with respect to mental health, depression, anxiety, and stress not only impacts our overall health, but it can also impact your hair and your ability to cope if you do have hair loss due to aging or genetics, or you're recovering from illnesses. And again, I could go on and on about this topic and kind of framing it, but again, I really think it's important to think of it in terms of internal, how we perceive how we look and our hair and gloriousness in that; external, how others perceive our hair and how we may internalize that and it impact our value and self-worth. And then lastly, mental health. We know individuals with depression that suffer from anxiety, suffer from stress. It impacts their hair. It impacts your overall health. So I'll stop there and I'll turn it back over to James so we can get to the panelists and get to some real meaty discussion. James?
Thank you so much, Brandy. And like the other speakers, I'm going to keep myself up in the corner because I don't like popping myself in the main. So we have some wonderful panelists this evening, and one of them is so gracious, as busy as she is, to still come into the room and talk about her hair. And I wish she had just a teeny bit more light, but we can see it. And she's talked often about it when she's going to let us know. Y'all know Councilor Mejia. She's going to let us know some of her experiences in dealing with her hair and introduce herself. And what we'll do real quick is go around with a quick roll of introductions, and then we're going to go back to Councilor Mejia. So she's going to end the introductions. And what I'd like to ask folks to do, according to how you appear on my screen, Liz, if you could introduce yourself and also describe how you feel about, as Dr. Brandy was saying, let's take it externally. Tell us how you feel, how people view you externally about your hair. And I'm going to ask everyone, if you can turn your volume down on your devices, that would be great. Okay. Liz, if you could tell us your name, introduce yourself, and tell us one word, how you feel people perceive you by your, hair, or I'm going to give you a mess up, but hair, but not having, oh, Jesus, Liz.
You can say bald. It's okay. I am bald.
Yes,
I own it.
Yes,
I'm Liz James. I'm from Roxbury, born and bred, and I'm a preschool teacher and a playwright. How people perceive me, or how I thought they perceived me, I originally thought they would think I was not feminine enough, or female at all for that matter, but quite the opposite. Lots of times I get approached and people are like, oh, yes, you're wearing that, and I love it. And so it was very surprising, but my original thought was there's going to be some question as to who or what I am and how do I show up in the room. But it was completely opposite.
We're definitely looking forward to hearing more. Absolutely. Brother Mark, we're going to go ahead and ask you this time to unmute, and it's good to see you on here. We're on stations down the hall from each other. But sir, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you believe people perceive you as a man that's bald. How do you believe people perceive you externally based on your being bald?
First, I want to say thank you for having me on this panel. It's a pleasure to be here. People perceive me as handsome. I don't know. They love baldness. It wasn't always that way. Wasn't always people love bald, but I think now, or maybe a few years back, Michael Jordan was my hero when I started going bald, because he was bald and he made bald cool.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And Kelli, if you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you feel that people perceive you based on your hair.
I'm Kelli Tatum, and I think I've always been associated with medium hair, long hair. That's always been an identity for me. And that started to change as I was diagnosed with lupus. And then it changed even more when I was diagnosed with leukemia. And I started to lose even more hair due to chemotherapy. And I almost became bald. I think actually I was pretty much bald. I just don't remember because I was very ill at the time. So
how do you feel people perceived you?
That's a tough question because I really don't know. I mean, I always had hair, so it was always Kelli with the long hair.
Absolutely. So, sounds a little bit like Becky with the good hair, but I'm not gonna go there.
That's how it always was.
We'll come right back to that, definitely.
Okay.
What I'm going to do is put Sister Toy right before our counselor and ask Brianna if you could introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about yourself, this wonderful community resident who is rocking this wonderful, I would call it, what do you call it back in the day? It was the, oh, Jesus, I'm old. Brianna, introduce yourself. The Mohawk, thank you. And, you know, tell us how you feel people perceive you according to your hair.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I actually do have a Mohawk, so it's like faded into a Mohawk. I am Brianna. I am a community activist, but you guys can call me the political plug if you please. But I think people perceive my hair as a statement. I feel like when they see young women that are natural, they immediately assume that I'm confident. So
I like that. I really, really like that. And Toy, right before our counselor, if you could tell us, introduce, well, we know who you are. I think you can just tell us, how do you feel people perceive you according to your hair? And you've been public about your story, but go ahead.
Yes. So when most people, and it's not even the way they perceive me, it's kind of how I perceive myself. Because I was also identified as Toy with the long hair. So I ran into someone who I hadn't seen since I was a child. And she was like, oh, Toy with the beautiful hair. And I was like, but I'm bald now. This is a wig. So whenever somebody compliments my hair, I'm always quick to say this is a wig. And I don't know why I do that. But you know, they always say, oh, well, it looks good. You wear it well and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm still struggling.
Absolutely. And counselor, thank you so much for being patient. And with that, give you a few extra minutes to tell us. And I've heard a little bit about your story growing up and how people perceived you, you know, with your hair, and even recently since you've been a counselor. So please, for those that don't know who you are, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit, not so much about yourself, but if you could start off as you did before about your story when you were a child and you talked about your hair, as I've heard before. And we can definitely go from there. Councilor Mejia.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm sorry that my lighting is off. There's little halos around here, so I'm trying to fix it up for y'all. So I'm Councilor at Large Julia Mejia, and when DeeDee asked me to, when Toy asked me, I don't know why I said DeeDee, but when Toy asked me, I know, right? When Toy asked me to be on this panel, I didn't think twice about it. I just put it on my calendar and I said yes right away, because it's something that I struggle with as an Afro-Latina. I'm from the Dominican Republic, and there's a lot of anti-Blackness. in that country, and that has spilled over to the hair. And I grew up always being told to comb my hair, to relax my hair, that I looked unruly, unkept, unprofessional, and downright, like a savage. And I grew up with that, and I always wore my hair natural. I did chemically process my hair when I was in high school, but then I started wearing my hair natural even before the natural hair movement was cute. And I remember walking down the street and being called out and saying, "You need a comb, go to the salon, do your hair." And this was before anyone was really rocking it out this big. This is like maybe 25 years ago. And I think that for me, it's always been about embracing all of my roots. And I think as I continue to grow into myself and into my own confidence, my hair has been a big part of my identity. I'll say this really quick, is that, I got a job at MTV was because of my hair. I mean, I knew a little bit about reporting and working with young people, but my hairstyle got me in through that door. And so no matter what people have to say about my hair, I know that my hair has sometimes walked into the room before I have, right? And most recently, when I was running for office, I had cut my hair probably like 5 or 6 years ago. I was wearing my hair really short. And I was comfortable with that. And there was a point during the campaign that even people were asking me, am I going to let my hair grow? Am I going to keep it short? I don't want to scare anybody, like as though being fully expressed and natural would not be complimentary in certain parts of the city. I kept my hair short because it's easier to deal with. COVID has made it harder for us to maintain that hairstyle, and I just decided to let my hair grow back out. And whether it's easier or not, I'm just embracing it. And I've been called out even as a city councilor. And I wouldn't have thought that in 2020, I would still be hearing the same things I heard in the 80s about going to the hair salon and getting my hair fixed because I wasn't appropriate. And that hurts. That hurts a lot. And James, I know you're going to ask me one more last question, but I'll say this, is that in 2010, the census was the first time when the census has asked you to pick a race. And my mother, who is darker skinned than I am, but her hair is softer than mine, she said to me that she wasn't Black and that she was Indian. I said, that's not an option. And she said, well, you're Black. Look at your hair. Mm. And that self-hate is real, especially when it's in your own household. And that's why I'm so glad to be in this conversation today, because we have a lot of work to do to undo the hate that we have been grown up to believe about ourselves.
And Councilor, that may be a good segue into, I would ask you more in the context, and you talked about it a little bit, but excuse me, on the campaign trail, how do you feel that, and you rocked a couple of different styles during the campaign, but how do you feel generally that people that did not know you perceived you according to your hair, the versatility of your hair, the texture, or whatever? How do you feel that people perceived you?
Well, it depends on what community I was in, right?
Facts.
So all the Latinos were like, they because my hair was shorter, like Brianna talked about, that level of confidence, that was not embraced in a lot of Latino communities because they thought that I was just too much. With my hair short, who was I to even try to be showing off my face like that? Like, they just thought that I was a little bit too much for them. And then I think in the white communities, I my texture and my style, it depends on what part of the white community I was in. I think I was also a little bit too much. But one thing I will say is that, this is why I identify with my Black roots, is because every community that I have been in, the one that has embraced me the most have been my Black and brown brothers and sisters, right? Like, that's why I talk about being Afro-Latina, because that is the one place where I've always felt Like no matter how I show up, I'm fully embraced. And all of this is totally accepted.
Councilor, thank you. Thank you. Liz, I'm going to come back to you and ask you, and you saw it wasn't so much not being able to say bald. I was just saying, you know, according to hair, and then I got stuck because I'm looking at the camera at the screen and I'm like, okay, she doesn't have hair. So I'm like, okay, what do I say? But you talked a little bit about perception based on the fact that you are fully bald. Robin referred to the fact of her being bald. Can you tell us a little bit about how you feel, or go a little bit deeper to where you said, you know, some people question your femininity or whatever. Can you talk a little bit about that? And then we're going to ask Dr. Brandy to chime in just a little bit based on what we've heard so far to give a little bit of context. After Liz gives us the idea about how does it feel to be a bald woman? And if you don't mind, are you bald by choice or are you bald by circumstance?
Okay, so I'll start with the latter part of the question. I would say it's a little of both. I do have lupus, and because of some of the medications that were given, my hair began to thin and fall out, and the little hair that did remain was very coarse and just stubborn. So it was a case of, you know, get a wig, wear wraps, and I did all those things for a number of years. And 3 years ago, in 2017, I just said, I'm tired. I'm absolutely tired of all of this. So I took a deep breath. I went into the barbershop and I sat there with tears streaming down my eyes. And I cried so much. This man, the barber, really thought that I had cancer. So he wouldn't even take my money after he gave me the shave. He was like, no, it's okay. It's on me. You know, sister, you're going to be okay. Many of women, you know, many of sisters, many of women have gone through this. God's going to bless. He really thought I was, you know, though I was sick, he thought I had cancer. And so initially it was extremely difficult for me because I remember being a child, my first year in college, when I went to Bennett College, I had carefree curl and it was a hot mess. Can I just be honest about it? And so my roommate was like, you should cut your hair. And just, you know, blindly, I went to the barbershop with her. And when the guy cut my hair, I cried. And when I came home for Thanksgiving break, my mother lost her mind. You're not a boy, was the first thing out of her mouth. I don't know why you would do that. You're not supposed to. And it was. And so, and I was 19 when that happened. And so 3 years ago, when I'm in my late 40s, I'm still hearing my mother's voice. You're not a boy. You're not a boy. You're not a boy. So I begin to really internalize that and think, I can't do this. But I was struggling with, how do I keep the little hair that is growing and style it and live with this? Or do I stand in my truth and live for me and cut it? And so I took that leap of faith and I cut it. And I tell you, there are times I forget that I'm bald until I'm walking down the street and someone's like, I like your hair cut, your head, you got the perfect face for that. Like, they don't even know what to say. A lot of people do not know what to say, but they want to compliment me on it. And then I go, oh yeah, I am bald. Or when, you know, the wind hits my scalp, I'm like, oh, that's right, I kind of need a hat and fold. But I honestly, I'm so comfortable with it that I absolutely forget that I'm bald.
That is awesome, Liz. And I must say, I mean, and it's funny because you hear people say, well, everybody doesn't have the head for that. And you hear people say, well, they don't have the face for that. But when I tell you, you are a beautiful queen rocking that baldy. You know what I mean? And so I did say I was going to go to Dr. Brandy after Liz, but based on what Mark said about back in the day, bald wasn't popular. Mark, I'm going to put you on the spot. And it's funny because I think with men and women, it is a stereotype. Even though bald is in style now, did it go in style based on the fact that so many brothers were maybe losing their hair? Absolutely. So Mark, can you tell us a little bit, and then we'll go to Dr. Brandy because Liz touched on a few things, and I know Brandy, you over there, Dr. Brandy, you're over there itching to comment on some things. But Mark, can you tell us, are you bald by choice or circumstance? And then we'll go from. Go ahead, sir. I'm
bald by I inherited it. So if I give you a funny story, I've been bald since I was 25 years old, or at least balding. And we lived in Dorchester, and we had a porch upstairs. My father would sit on the porch all the time, watch the Red Sox. And my father was bald. So he would look down on the porch when I was 25. It's like, yo, he's like, your hair's kind of thinning in the back. And I went to Sam Lawson's barber shop, had him cut my hair close to my baldness. And after a while, I didn't want to look like Larry from Three Stooges. So after a while, I said, just cut it all off. And that's what I did. But I realized later on in life that bald ain't bad. Bald ain't bad. Everybody wants to rub my head.
Bald isn't bad at all, and quite all actuality, as you said earlier, it is now. I think in these days it has become more attractive, and as you said,
Right.
style. Dr. Brandy, can you chime in on what you heard thus far? And I know our counselor, though, came here tonight and put it right on the calendar. She has other things she has to do. So after Dr. Brandy, I'm going to come with to Councilor Mejia and ask her a question, and then I'll pull everyone else in. Thank you so much for your patience thus far, Dr. Brandy. Feedback. Liz named a lot of things. Mark named a lot of things. And I just want to chime in and say the way in your introduction that you called out every male and female possibility of hairstyle, I said, you better preach that thing. But Dr. Brandy, based on what they've said and shared so far about choice of circumstance, both of them shared, it was a little by circumstance. And you talked about mental health. Mark said when it happened to him, it wasn't popular. Liz said that she had, issues with her mom, saying when she was 19. Talk a little bit about the mental health impact in these two situations that we highlighted. And then if you could end with Councilor Mejia's piece, and we can go back to her about what she said about when she was younger and her mom.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to do that in a different way. Hopefully,
you're the doctor.
You can. No. So I hope this sits well with everyone, because I'm going to go there tonight. I'm going to call a spade a spade. I'm going to call it what it is. In our society, we value whiteness. We value youth. And there are gender conformities and boxes that we fit into, or we perceive we must fit into. And so a lot of what was said kind of falls under that umbrella. As I started in the beginning, I said hair discrimination is real, whether it happens as the basis of your age, it happens as the basis of your expression of hair isn't Eurocentric enough, or it isn't our notion of Eurocentricity. And even now that there is a natural movement, there is still kind of a hierarchy of naturalness in terms of how it is perceived in the world. And there are many studies that back this up. As I mentioned before, hair discrimination is real, and there actually has been a movement. There are 4 states that literally criminalize hair discrimination: New York, New Jersey, California, and Virginia. And I just want to read this short passage from the California law. It says, and I quote, "The history of our nation is riddled with laws and societal norms that equate Blackness and the associated physical traits, for example, dark skin, kinky and curly hair, to a badge of inferiority, sometimes subject to separate and unequal treatment." And then they went on to talk about how this filters through our workplace, our schools, and in our society. And so one of the things is when you hear the stories from Liz, from Mark, and even Councilwoman Mejia, one of the things you hear is those notions of, it was not acceptable at one point, and now it is, but it depends on what communities and spaces you are in terms of the level of acceptability. And so it does get back to this idea that how we encompass our beauty and our Blackness and our boldness is still sometimes seen as inferior. It's still seen like that. And as a result, in terms of our mental health, and think about it, Liz said she still remembers some of the comments she heard. And then, Councilwoman Mejia mentioned is that stuff sticks with you. It stays with you. Those microaggressions, those, people describe them as like death by 1,000 cuts. When when that is constantly reinforced in the media, in your homes, in your schools, that you are less than, just because of how you choose to style your hair or because of the absence of hair, that matters and that's important. And that's what this conversation is about.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brandy. Councilor, I know Councilor Mejia well, so I know what those faces mean sometimes. And there was one point when you were talking, Dr. Brandy, that I wanted to interrupt you, and I got that point, and I knew that would have been a good setup for Councilor Mejia, and I know she's heard a lot there. But Councilor, based on what you've heard so far, and this is coming in real time as we're talking, and Dr. Brandy talked about some states where they are moving, I believe, if I understood right, to where you said there are still laws, Dr. Brandy,
they have passed laws
that are supportive.
Yes, they are on the books. New York, New Jersey, California, and Virginia. They have criminalized hair discrimination.
Okay. Councilor, in the vein that you move, do you think that we're at a point in Boston or in Massachusetts to where, because there's been some stories about, racism and things like that. So do you think in Boston do we need spoken legislation about the acceptability of every style that Dr. Brandy named, or policy and hair? Where do you see that?
Yeah. So first of all, I love Dr. Brandy. I don't know if you do visits, but I got to be on your roster because I need therapy right now. Just listening to you, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going straight to you. And one and two, James, don't worry about my time. I'm here for the duration of the evening, so don't worry about putting me first or rushing me or anyone else. I mean, I'm here for all of this. So
yes, ma'am. Understood.
So I just want to name that.
Yes.
But I will say is that, yes, I haven't grown up in Boston. I know that Boston considers itself the states of first of many, but I do know that we struggle with being the first to do things when it comes to issues around race and issues of racism in Boston. I do think that if there isn't anything on the books here in Massachusetts, Dr. Brandy, Brooks, I'd love to be able to work with you. I am the chair of small business and workforce development, and having worked with Sheena Collier and a lot of folks who are moving in different spaces, I think that this is a conversation worth having. I'm looking to see what the workforce looks like here in the city of Boston and what can we propose here to be a little bit more aggressive and vocal around this particular issue. So I definitely would welcome the opportunity to work in collaboration with you and Sheena Collier and others who are doing this work, because absolutely I do believe if it is not spoken, then it needs to be elevated, spoken, codified into law, and then we need to be held accountable to it.
Thank you, Councilor. Dr. Brandy, did you want to respond real quick to what the Councilor said as far as looking into? And I know,
Yeah.
Go ahead. And then we're going to go to Kelly, who has been so patient, and Brianna as well.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that it's important, right? Because just like these conversations, if we don't talk about it, if we don't voice it, if we don't speak it, it remains silent and it remains okay. So, it's important to say, you know what, I'm struggling with my mental health. I need help. Please help me. Just the same as it's to say, yes, I have locks, but no, I'm not a criminal. I might have Bantu knots and I'm a doctor. Or yes, I might be beautiful and bald, and yes, I'm still a woman. That's important. And it's important to name it and to shame behaviors that treat people as less than because of how they wear their hair or the absence of their hair.
Thank you, Dr. Brandy. Kelly, we're going to come to you real quick. And one of the things that you talked about along with Liz as well was that you had named and God bless you, and we send healing energy your way. You named a couple of things, lupus and leukemia. And you really named a lot of time, a lot of what attributed to you losing your hair was a medical condition. And so that would be by circumstance. Can you talk a little bit about, I would say, there's the mental health impact of what caused you to lose your hair, and then you lost your hair. So there's a mental health impact as well. So can you talk a little bit from the perspective of when it's a medical issue? Some folks are going out natural now. They're tired of it. They just shave their head or whatever. So can you talk a little bit about that? And then Brianna, we're going to come right to you.
Right. Sure. In 1999, I was diagnosed with lupus. So when that happened, I was pregnant with my son. And with that came depression, came anxiety, came stress. My hair started to thin. It started falling out. I was just losing massive amounts of hair. Every time I washed my hair, every time I combed my hair, brushed my hair was falling out. To this day, my hair is still coming out. Even though, you know, I have a lot of hair, it's still coming out. And I'm on a lot of medication because I do have a lot of complications because of the lupus. And, you know, I have chronic illnesses. So, you know, even though people look at me and they think I have this beautiful hair, which I'm thankful and blessed, you know, because of my grandmother to have, you know, I'm just thankful that I have good genes where I have hair that keeps growing because it keeps coming out. And that, you know, does attack your psyche at times. And, you know, it keeps me with my therapist. You know, I have a therapist that I've been seeing for quite some time. I've been in therapy since 1985. I call myself a poster child for therapy. A lot of people don't believe in therapy. A lot of people don't want to go to therapy, but I find that with chronic illnesses, it goes hand in hand with therapy, because you are dealing with depression, you are dealing with anxiety, you are dealing with stress. You know, when you're being told that you have these incurable diseases, you know, that's your life. I mean, what are you going to do? And you have 2 children, and I had small children at the time. You know, it's a lot to deal with. And you got your hair falling off on top of all that. So, you know, it's a lot to deal with, you know, but through the grace of God, I'm still here. I'm 6 years in remission. I have a loving family. Tanoy, Robin, you know, I have a lupus support system. My sorors of Delta Sigma Theta have been wonderful. They have prayed for me. They continue to pray for me. I have outstanding friends. It's just a beautiful support system that has carried me. And of course, like I said, God, my church. You cannot go through stuff like this without God, without your church, without your family. And it's, you know, it's just, I just had this conversation with a soror yesterday about this. You know, I was out of the sorority for many, many years because of the health challenges that I've had over the past 21 years. I was diagnosed 21 years ago, and I'm still here.
Still here.
Still here, still standing, still grinding. You know, I haven't been working for 21 years, but I've been busy. I got stuff to do. God wasn't ready for me.
That's it.
That's it. So if I can share my story to help somebody else, here I am.
And that's one of the purposes of DeeDee's Cry is, and we didn't really name it today, but in other spaces, that's one of the main foundations of DeeDee's Cry is telling your story. It just so happens tonight that we know that there's a silent population that is suffering from perceptions about hair and things like that. And one of the things I want to switch to a little bit and go to Brianna I forgot who it was, but someone referred to a hierarchy of natural. And I was kind of taken aback by that, because to me, natural is natural. But Brianna, are you familiar with the notion of a hierarchy of natural? So what, there's natural if you wear it blow dried and still straight, you don't have no chemicals, or is it if you wear the locks? I mean, school us about the fact of a hierarchy with natural hair. And then we're going to go to Brother Mark and I real quick, because as much as people think that hair is instantly attributed to women, and Toy asked me to talk about how I feel about my hair, so I'll give you all 30 seconds of that. But Brianna, hierarchy in natural hair, help me please.
Well, if you get real into it, there definitely is like, there's definition of curls. So you have like 4C, then you have like 4B, 4A. So what that means is it defines the kinkiness, or like the definition of your curls. So if you have looser, wavier curls, they're seen as like the upper echelon. Like they are seen as they have more manageable curls versus my hair type, which is more on the 4B, 4C end, which is like very, very tight curls, like almost like it doesn't curl. So within the natural world, there is definitely discrimination on even like with as far as products, like what products are accessible to women that have more tighter curls. But I definitely wanted to mention two things that came up in the conversation as well. Last year, Councilor Edwards and Councilor Janey actually, the council passed a resolution to support a bill in the State House that was meant to ban discrimination on hair textures and hair types. Unfortunately, we let it die in the House of Representatives, but that's something that we could, get to keep at and get to make sure that happens. So that's like one piece of legislation that we can push. I believe it was like a rep in Malden. I forget his name, but he's the one who introduced it. But yeah, I think that we do need to legislate in some regard, but I'm also very wary about legislating. Like we need to be very clear on how we're legislating people's bodies and people's like how they show up into spaces. Because I always say the way I show up into spaces is my form of protest. And I kind of mentioned this in the comments. So I really appreciate Councilor Mejia in particular for early on being a woman that reached out to me. At this point in time, she wasn't a counselor either. When I was losing my hair in earlier, maybe late last year, I was getting over my hot girl summer, and out of nowhere, I started gaining these basically like big rashes on my body. And I basically found out that I had pityriasis rosea, which is an autoimmune disease that basically is flesh eating. So it eats at your flesh, and it started building its way up into my scalp. And so I started losing my hair. I started having rashes on my hair, and I shared my journey and my reality on social media, and Councilor Mejia was one of the first people to be like, girl, you are still bomb. Like, what do you mean? And it also took a trip to Nigeria for my friend's wedding to realize that, I have to embrace what the journey God puts me through. And it was also great to hear voices like Councilor Mejia, amongst other people, really encouraging me to just walk in my truth. So I definitely want to share that. So
and Councilor, if I could give you 15 seconds if you wanted to respond to that, I know you would, or are you good?
Well, I wanted to say about the hierarchy situation.
Before we go there, I just didn't know if you wanted to respond to Brianna.
Oh, no, I don't have to always say something. I love you, Brianna. Keep on that journey. That's it.
All right. Before we go, we're going to go. Mark and I are going to talk for a minute. And so what I'll say is, in reference to this stuff here, and I got 3 sisters and can't get my hair braided. How do I feel about it when Toy asked me? I'll be very honest and transparent. My hair right now, I think, is a seizure of youthfulness. I'm in my year of Jubilee. I'm in my 50th run around the sun. So I think for me, it's a little bit of youthfulness. I like my hair. I like to have it. I like the braids. I see some of these young boys trying to rock styles, and I'm like, bruh, you ain't got it yet. Let me show you how to rock it. But no, seriously, I like my hair. And then when Toy asked me the question, it made me think about, I think if there's any particular reason outside of the fact that I just like it, I think that I embrace liking it, being 50 and people talk about whatever with this hair. It's a level, I guess, of youthfulness, you know, that I embrace about it as well. Mark, how do we now? I'll be honest, and I say this, and I know that some people may perceive it, but I tell people that when it comes to my hair, I act like a female. Like I will get it conditioned and all that other stuff. And I'm sitting here watching you pull it while I'm one thing. Sorry. But some people feel that brothers, you know, we just get a line up in the cut and it's good. But you know, when you had hair, what is there a difference? Was there a different Mark because he had hair? Yes or no? Or did the baldy change you? Or talk to us a little bit about that from a man's perspective in hair.
You know, when I was younger, I
hold on for 1 second,
like
because I knew. Sorry, y'all. I knew that was going to come up today, and we might have to have a whole separate part 2 on that about good hair. Because Becky,
I had good. Well, I'm Cajun. My family's from New Orleans, so everybody down there has green eyes and good hair. You know, in New Orleans.
Can we say a different texture hair? Because implying good hair means that there's a such thing as bad hair.
Yeah, I had waves, I had braids, I had the whole thing. And look at me now. Anyway, look, I want to show you all this. It's a lot easier to do this. To shave my head, man, and go to work in the morning. I don't got to go to the barber shop. I ain't going to do nothing. I just got to shave my head in the morning.
And got to get it braided.
Yeah. Hey, Councilor.
So but Mark, did it? The last question I'll ask you, and I'll go to Dr. Brandy, give us some feedback on what she's heard thus far. The baldy, there's a perception of baldy. Dr. Brandy talked about perception according to our hair. Are you perceived in a certain manner because you're a black man and you're bald?
I don't think so. And I said it earlier. I think Michael Jordan made bald being cool. So, and then everybody that was going bald, I think everybody shaved their hair off because bald became cool. And I think bald has kind of been a part of life. Like when I was younger, if somebody was bald, it was different. Like you're a whole different person. Like you're bald. Like you see the older guys, you know, our father's friends and uncles and all that were bald. It didn't comprehend with us because we had hair. But I think this day and age, bald is cool.
Thank you. Dr. Brandy, can you first, I'm going to put you on the spot, and then Robin, I'm going to come to you. I'm going to ask you a question. Your hair, what is it? You're in the clinical field. You know, you have medium to long hair. Let's say you got up one morning and you wanted to cut your hair and either go bald or go natural and walk in with locks or whatever. How do you feel that in the clinical space, research space, you would be perceived if you switched your hairstyle?
So this goes back to Mark's comment with respect to, you know, the good hair. So it reminds me of School Days, the song Good and Bad Hair, Good and Bad Hair. But the truth of the matter is, when we talk about hair and perception, it's as much as how others perceive as it's me. If I'm confident in who I am and my blackness and my hair and my texture and all of that, then it don't matter what you say, right? But where it becomes an issue is when your comments come constantly and I don't have the ability to be able to just block it out, right? Or I don't see examples of my type of hair in the workplace. So I'm the only representative for texture or anything like that. And you get the, "Ooh, can I touch your hair?" thing, you know, and so that matters. And then I just want to briefly go back to Mark's comment with respect to the good hair, because it really does underscore how much we do have not just colorism, but texturism. As I mentioned earlier with hierarchy, there is a texturism in terms of when you wear your hair natural, how much does it curl? How tight are those curls? And so that absolutely happens in society in terms of how you are perceived and how you may perceive yourself. And when you talk about this notion of good hair and bad hair, I was watching Tabitha Brown, who is she's vegan TikTok, and I'll never forget this. She was there with her daughter beside her, and her daughter's hair is a curlier texture. And I remember a viewer typed in a comment, "Oh, what are your children mixed with?" As though they had to be part of some type of Eurocentricity or something to have that type of texture hair. And Tabitha shut it down. She said, they mix with black and black, honey. This does happen, that you have two black parents and you end up with children who have this texture hair. But again, think about what that reinforces. If Tabitha wasn't there to tell her child, you are beautiful and your hair is beautiful because your black parents gave that to you, imagine you would end up with comments of, my hair isn't good enough, my hair, or you get the comments of, well, I got this hair because I got Indian in my family. That's why I get this texture. But, and this matters because, again, how we talk about it, even in conversation with others, it matters because, again, how do we internalize that? And then how do others look at us? If we're talking about ourselves like that, how do you think others are talking about
Absolutely.
About our hair?
Absolutely. Dr. Brandy, thank you. Robin, I'm going to throw it to you more than just the host and telling us who sponsored and all that. You made a comment when you introduced yourself and you said, I think either though I'm bald or I don't have any. If you don't mind, can I ask, is yours by choice or circumstance? And then how do you feel people perceived you? You were in the entertainment world. You move in the, music is entertainment as well. Hair and entertainment, how do you feel you are perceived?
I think perception. I think it just depends on whoever the crowd is and whoever that individual is. But because I'm fairly confident within who I am, I've always known who I was. I've never had an issue. I've heard people, and when I said I have no hair, if you recall, some of the flyers were old pictures of me when I had hair. And just like Kelli, I was a person where, I could cut my hair and 6 months later, my hair would be like, feet long, and people were always like, and I never phased it. Like people would identify me with my hair, but that's not how I identify myself. So, I remember one time I had cut my hair shorter than this. And I was just out and about doing my thing. And somebody was like, oh, and so I turned around because I was like, oh my God, somebody must have got hit or something. Like it startled me, but they were startled because to them, I had no hair. And I was just like, but I do have hair. This is me, whether it's long, braided, teased, curled, it's just me. It's just another expression of me. So, and actually, I don't even see that as an expression of me. That's just what I'm looking like that day, but it's not my full me. It doesn't make me, but, unfortunately for people, and not really unfortunately, I mean, that's just the way of humanity. Like first impressions, just like, you think about the person in the White House, that's an impression. Talking about that head of hair, so it's just a matter of, but who are you really? And that goes back to your mental health and how we deal with that.
And I almost said Dr. Robin. Here I am giving out doctorates again. Liz, I saw a reaction from you, and then I want to go back to the counselor. Brandy referred to the fact that someone asked Tabitha what her children are mixed with. And Brandy, I was waiting for you to say Tabitha's name. The name of Tabitha's hair is Donna. Oh, I watched Tabitha. The name of her do is Donna. Liz, so I guess we all watched Tabitha. Liz, what happened when you cringed when you heard Dr. Brandy ask that someone asked that question, like, what do you mix with? I've got it. My complexion, the texture of my hair. For a blow dry, let's keep it 100, because when I wash it, it's somewhere, Brianna, in that, what is it, Q2 something, whatever y'all were talking about. Yeah, the Q curl. Yeah, that one. But Liz, why did you cringe when you heard someone ask that question?
I cringe because, like she said, Tabitha said, it is very possible that two people of the same ethnicity can create all this beauty. And for someone to ask, what do you mix with, implies that we're less than capable of even doing that. And it's just so infuriating. It's like, I am capable of being so many different things beyond your wildest imagination if you would just allow me to be. But because you have placed me in this box, I've got to justify my worth, my legitimacy to you because of what you perceive in the box that you put me in. So it's just very infuriating. Well, what do you mix with? Or, the things that people do, even when a child is born, they're looking at the rim of the ears to see how dark the child is going to be. There's all these telltale signs that just makes me a little crazy sometimes. And while it makes me crazy, I know that I've also been very, very guilty of those very same things. And so I'm now at 51 trying to unlearn very bad behaviors that I've lived with all of my life. So I'm guilty of those same things. So even though I'm infuriated by it, and because now that I know better, you know what they say, when you know better, you do better. Now that I know better, I'm attempting to do better. But the mindset and the process of what it took to get us here, because we're having this conversation amongst ourselves, and it's very much needed. We have not yet said this was a learned behavior that was passed down to us just by how this country came to be. We didn't come here thinking we were less than, but we were taught that, and we passed it on and so forth and so on. And so it's so infuriating trying to break those chains and trying to come out of that. It's just, it's gut wrenching, honestly.
It's a mentality and paradigm shift. So, Councilor, I see that pen. Can you talk based on what somebody put in the comments? Collection plate time. Somebody put in the Councilor, based on what Liz said, and then if you could talk to, because you stick up for brothers as well. If you could talk to what Liz said about the mix thing, and then also talk about the fact, kind of off subject, but I know you can do this. How do you feel the difference between how brothers look at their hair and how sisters look at their hair? Why do you feel that there's a difference? Yes, I threw you a curveball because I know you can. Come on.
I didn't catch it. How about that? Okay. I didn't catch that curveball.
You missed it. Oh, I'm sorry.
I missed it. It hit me up on my head.
No.
So, but
No pun intended.
I do really want to just kind of name this whole good hair. I know that's not the question that you asked me, James. Yeah. I definitely want to chime in on that because a lot of Afro-Latinos, especially in the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico and Caribbeans in general, there is this anti-Blackness sentiment, and a lot of it is dictated not even by your skin color, but really about your hair texture. And that is how you are decided upon in terms of what class system you are going to be able to operate in. And so if you really look at the white dominant culture, to Liz's point, it's like we have been conditioned to believe that we are less than, right? That is like the history shows itself, like there's no need for us to rebuttal that. We know that that is the truth. But if you really look at hair texture, right? When you have limp hair that you can't do much with, you have to question whether or not that's good hair. When you have hair like this that you could do a lot with, and that the coil of it is thick, that I think in many ways is considered good hair. And I think that we have to reclaim that narrative of how people define what good hair versus bad hair is. And I think that that's an opportunity that we have now as adults. But if we start thinking about Disney, With my daughter, you know, her dad is Black and I'm an Afro-Latina, right? So for her, she doesn't see herself reflected in anything that Disney produces, ever. Even when they had the Princess Frog Tiana, they gave her some long hair. Like, yo, for real, seriously? There's no opportunity for our beautiful children to be fully expressed and see all of their natural beauty in this day and age, that this is how our Black princesses are showing up, right? And I think that is the media. And I think that is where the opportunity really lies in us to push. And then going back to, you know, this curveball that you are throwing at me in terms of men and how they perceive their hair versus women, you know, there are a lot of men who are at these barbershops lining themselves up, blowing their hair out straight, and people have something to say about that. They're like, yo, why are you at the hair salon getting your hair blown out to just get braids? Like, there's a lot of gender issues there as well that we need to unpack in terms of how men take care of themselves and what the perception is of them doing so, right? So I think that if we're going to talk about that, then we also need to bring that into the room, is that there's a lot of hair shaming happening across all genders. And I think, but the bottom line is, going back to the conversation that we're having here today, is that if we go back to Dr. Brandy Brooks's whole setup, is that the trauma that we carry in, and that we pass on to our children, just by even when we're trying to prim and proper and get ourselves out the door, when we're struggling with like the comb that won't put it all up or whatever, and we say these off the cuff comments about like, oh, this, I should just go blow it out, it'll just be easier. Like, these things our kids are listening to, right? I think those are the things that we need to be super mindful of in terms of how we don't pass on that trauma and those values to the next generation. And I think that now is the time for us to really push. And I love the fact that Brianna knows her legislative history. And I love the fact that she said that we can't legislate everything. Some of it is just policies, protocols, and procedures that could be done in the workforce. And the fact that we even have to have this conversation about like the law says so much about how much work we need to do about ourselves within the context of this conversation.
Councilor, thank you. And I knew where I was going, and you brought it out as far as the difference between male and female. And Sister Irvine brought it up, and I don't know if you guys saw it, but brothers, we're concerned about our hair and whatnot. And you named it so perfectly, brothers. I know some brothers that will get their hair lined up every 5 days. You know what I mean? Or they'll go and get that, you know, or straightened or whatever, and walk around. And some brothers are happy because their hair is down to here, and that's what I'm trying to get. But we're going to get ready to start wrapping up, and I'm going to ask folks to give their sort of final remarks. If they could say to the community, if they could say to the world a statement about themselves or yourself rather, and not being based about your hair, whatever statement you would like to leave with the world in reference to you and your hair or lack thereof, or temporary lack thereof, lace front, wig, braids, mark bald, straightened. And I'll start with the order of, actually, I'm going to go and start with Brianna. What is it that you would say to the world regarding mental health and hair, and to the world, to the listeners?
Well, first, thank you for having me. This is a very much a needed conversation. What I would say is, I think that we should give ourselves a break, but also allow our hair to be reflective of our emotions. It's the same way we get happy or we get sad, we get upset, is the same way we could change our hair. If I wanted to throw a lace front on, if I wanted to be Nicki Minaj tomorrow, then I can be Nicki Minaj tomorrow. So I feel like we really have to stop putting so much pressure on ourselves on how others perceive us, and really be in your authenticity, like be in your truth, because that's really what people respond to, is how comfortable you are with yourself. So, yeah.
Brianna, thank you. Now that was good. That was real good. I'm sitting here. All right, Kelli, you've been so patient, so I'll ask you to start. What would you say specifically to a male or female child who is dealing with medical issues, who's going back and forth with issues with their hair? What would you say to them?
I would say to embrace who you are. Be you. God has you. And who you are is who God meant for you to be. Whether it's with hair, without hair, with the illness, God has you. He has protected you and will continue to protect you through it
And
all.
I'm obliged to say amen. Liz, what is it that you would say to other beautiful, bold, bald, black, brown, even white women who are rocking a wonderful baldy? What would you say to them?
Well, I belong to a support group on Facebook called the Baldy Group. Excuse me. And one of the things we all say a lot of times, I am not my hair. And I know I'm stealing from in the RV, but I'm not my hair or the lack thereof. Give me a chance. Give yourself a chance to find out who I am, what I bring to the table, because you'll be quite surprised. You will be very surprised, actually. I'm not my hair. And I'm glad I'm not my hair, and I'm glad I can live without my hair.
Liz, thank you. Thank you. Mark, what would you say to not just brothers, but what would you say to the world as far as either how they're perceived, as far as their hair, or just that, how are they perceived as far as their hair? What would you say if they encounter some negative whatever about their hair? How would you suggest to them that they respond?
First of all, I want to say thank you for having me on this panel tonight. And as far as being bald is cool. So they should embrace it and enjoy it. It's easy to shave your head and get a haircut sitting in the barber shop. And chicks love bald guys.
I knew, so he kind of hinted to it earlier, and well, anyway, I'm gonna leave that alone. But you see how he keeps throwing his little wisecrack that all he got to do is shave, and I keep talking about the fact I got to get somebody to. That's cool, Mark. I'm gonna come down the hall next week.
Right here.
Your hair's done in about 10 strokes.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe 5.
Councilor, what is it that you would say to the community in reference to perception about hair? You talked a lot about, racism and whatnot, just perceptions, period. What would you say?
Yeah, in so many ways, I keep hearing that my hair is not who I am, not my hair, but in so many ways, my hair has defined me in so many different spaces, right? And I think that for me, my hair has always been my act of rebellion and my act of just showing up as who I am, regardless of whether or not anyone is able or ready to embrace all of this, right? And so I do this because this is who I am and how I feel most comfortable. And even when people feel uncomfortable around this, I show up anyways. And I think that that's what these times require. Having rocked my hair naturally, and in the Dominican Republic, which is one of the most racist countries, and being in spaces where people didn't like it, and I still did it because it makes me feel good about myself. And I think that's hard to do. And sometimes we leave ourselves at the door to make other people feel comfortable. And I think however you are, however you fully express, however you show up, embrace all of it, period. Do you, boo? That's it.
Do you, boo? That's the word. I almost want to put that in the banner. Do you, boo? What we'll do is we will ask Dr. Brandy to give us her closing remarks, and then we're going to go to Toy, and then Robin will close us out. But definitely, Dr. Brandy, let us know what is it that you would say to the community based on everything that was said tonight. What are your closing remarks?
I'm a co-opt Councilwoman Mejia's "Do You Boo" and expand on it just a little bit and say, you know, I love NDRE's song, "I'm Not My Hair," but I'm gonna flip it a little bit, right? You are your hair, or the absence or abundance of it. You are this skin. You are this body. You can defy expectations. Be you, whoever you are, however you are. And if you find yourself in moments where you are struggling with either your internal perceptions of how you look and how you feel about that, or you are struggling with the constant barrage of comments, words, thoughts, externally that come at you because of your hair or because of your appearance, please know that you are not alone. Please know that there is support. Please know that there are individuals that can help you and can assist you. Some of them on the call today. I'll end with just kind of a shameless plug for DeeDee's Cry. We received some funding from the Boston Foundation to support individuals and families that have been impacted by COVID. And so if you've been impacted or you know someone who's been impacted, please go to our website, www.deedescry.com, and apply for a gift card. We are going to give them out until supplies last. So please go and apply. And just lastly, with respect to the conversation, again, it is very important, whoever and however you are, to show up in your spaces and be comfortable in that. And if you aren't, please know that there is support available if you need it.
Dr. Brandy, thank you so much. What did I just say, Toy and Robert? Okay, Toy, would you like to close us out this evening? If you all don't know, Toy is the founder, curator, visionary for these type of conversations in DeeDee's Cry. So if you all are out there in the Facebook world, hit those hearts and those likes and those cares for Toy, because we're here because she's here. And so, Toy, we appreciate you. Give us your greeting, closing, impressions, whatever. This is your show, whatever you want to do.
Okay, like James says, my name is Toy Burton, and I just want to thank the panel for being here and for sharing your stories. When I come up with these panels, when I come up with the ideas, it's basically the things that either I'm going through or I've been through. So whether it's mental health while Black, activism in mental health, advocacy in mental health, and now here in mental health, it was really important for me to have this panel, to have this discussion, because I too have discoid lupus, and I've been losing my hair for over the past 10 years. So this discussion, I really wanted to have it. DeeDee's Cry, I created DeeDee's Cry 3 years ago after I was on websites that their focus is mental health awareness or suicide prevention, and I didn't see anybody on these websites that looked like me. The places where they were having the events, I was like, that is not accessible for me. I live in Roxbury. So I wanted to start an organization that deals with mental health awareness and suicide prevention for communities of color, and that it is accessible for communities of color. That's why DeeDee's Cry's events are free. But if you can bless us, go to the website, deedescry.com, hit the donate button. You can also give by check, send a check to our fiscal sponsor, the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute. Make sure DeeDee's Cry is on the memo section. Mail it to 2 John Elliott Square, Roxbury, Mass. 02119. Again, thank you everyone for sharing your stories and sharing yourselves to help others.
And Robin, we are going to pass it back to you to close us out and thank everyone for this evening. I will just say, as the host and host of Java with Jimmy and digital director, it was a pleasure to host you guys this evening. This was a very informative conversation for me. And I was going to just throw it up under the hat. And I'm like, you know what? Forget it. I'm just going to wear it out because it is what it is. But thank you all so much for this opportunity. And Robin, if you could close us out. and we will be all set. Please stay tuned. There are more events, more things coming down the pike from DeeDee's Cry. Make sure you like and follow the page DeeDee's Cry on Facebook. There's an IG as well. And also, are we on Twitter, Toy? You're on Twitter. She's on Toy's on Twitter. You can follow Toy on Twitter, but DeeDee's Cry is coming on Twitter soon.
Did I do a DeeDee's Cry page? I don't even remember.
Well, we're on IG and Facebook for sure. And Dr. Brandy, I'm sure operations will follow up.
Oh, please like the Facebook page. If you are watching on Facebook, like DeeDee's Cry Facebook page. And also, I am the founder and the executive director of the Roxbury Unity Parade. I started the Roxbury Unity Parade after I saw other neighborhoods have parades for their neighborhoods. I was like, hey, what about Roxbury? What about the Black community? So the Roxbury Unity Parade is Boston's only parade that is dedicated to uplifting the African-American experience, culture, and history in the city of Boston. If you would like to make a donation to the Roxbury Unity Parade, go to that website, roxburyunity18.weebly.com. You can register to be a participant. Next year, hopefully, we'll be able to come together. We were a caravan this year, but yes, cross everything that we would come together next year. It's going to be a whole weekend, so look forward to that. And anything else, anyone?
Nope. I think Robin's going to wrap us up.
Okay. Thank you, Robin.
Y'all did a wonderful job. Good night. No.
I was like, I'm not ready.
No, there's nothing left for me to say. Y'all did it. But the dates for the Roxbury Unity weekend this year, it's going to be a whole weekend. It's July 16 through 18, 2021. You know, people say Black people are always late. We on time with this. We're early with this, right? Roxbury, we know the date and everything. Whole weekend, July 16 through 18, 2021. It's going to be a parade, a comedy show, Taste of Roxbury, block party, fashion show, all of it with mental health information wrapped up in one. And if COVID is continuing on, we will adjust to it and we'll still celebrate. So don't worry about that. And
We'll
as
be
far
right
as
here.
tonight, we'll be right here. And as far as tonight, thank you all panelists for being here tonight. It was wonderful. I love to have these discussions. Thank you so much, Toy, for bringing us all together. Heartfelt, truly. And the thing about what I really love about these evenings is, you know, we have a topic of discussion. We have Dr. Brandy brings us all in with the clinical side of it. We give our antidotes for it. And then we tell a story. And what I really love is those singular stories that we tell do not define us. We are always more than that. So even though we're speaking of hardships and troubles and, you know, mental unwealth or unhealth, we are always more than that. And we're always here as a family and a village to get over those hurdles. Yes, we're people who have been historically marginalized, but we are people who have always overcome, and we will continue to do so. And I'm so glad to be here in this family with you all as we continue on. So everyone out there in our Zoom land and beyond Boston, thank you all for being here tonight. I know that you can share tonight's broadcast with your friends if they couldn't be there, and your family members if they couldn't be here live with us. Please share and click this broadcast. It'll be archived on DeeDee's Cry's website, Facebook site, and also on Java with Jimmy's Facebook site. So we're here for you. And until the next time, everybody, please live well.
Thank you all so much. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.